Bulgaria was established as a country in 681 AD. First of all, we actually changed sides in the Second World War. So actually we saved many thousands of Jews. We joined Schengen on 1st of January 2025. We don't have euro right now.
Know Your Neighbors, a podcast by Maldo and Giulio.
Hello! Welcome to Know Your Neighbors, episode 9. And here we are with Kalina.
Hello.
Somewhere in the Balkans.
Thank you for being with us, yes.
My pleasure.
So tell us, which country are you representing?
So today I'm representing Bulgaria.
So cheers for that. We thought
Thank
of
you for
beer for the
introducing to
first
this.
time after 9 episodes.
Yes.
Okay, so history-wise, let's start around the 18th century. Where do we start? So basically, Bulgaria as a state per se has existed since many years, but there was a long period of time where you lost a bit your identity in a way, or your national feeling. I don't know how to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the 18th century, you again had this, what's the word? I forgot the word.
Awakening.
Awakening, that's the word. Thank you, Julio. You always have the word.
Yes, actually, before we talk about the awakening, I just want to highlight that Bulgaria was established as a country in 681 AD.
Okay.
And ever since its establishment, it has not changed its name.
Okay.
So ever since, it's one of the very few countries in the world,
681, so
yes, that ever since it was established, it did not change its name. So up until present day, we're still called Bulgaria.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a very old country, let's say.
Very old country, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, super ancient. Okay.
But what happened in between that led to then having an awakening, as Maldo was saying?
Yes, so actually there was the rise of national consciousness because we were under, like, from 1762 to 1878, we were under Ottoman Empire, so we were under the Ottoman rule.
Mm-hmm.
So that's around 500 years of Ottoman Empire. So basically throughout those periods we decided we wanted to kind of a lot of like philosophers, writers, revolutionaries were trying to, in a way, establish what does it mean to be Bulgarian. And actually, like as part of the awakening, a very famous person is Hilendar, Paisi of Hilendar, who wrote about the Slaveno-Bulgarian history. And he basically wrote chronicles on what it means to be a Bulgarian and why have we lost our pride to be Bulgarians.
Okay.
And actually that's when a lot of Bulgarians started questioning, actually it's true that we have lost our pride in a way, and why is that? And I think, yeah, like through the writings and through history, then we came to realize that there has been a lot of Turkish influence, Ottoman influence, which has kind of made us question, therefore has made us come to this moment of cultural awakening, you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I guess it's normal as well, after so many years of Ottoman Empire, that you had lost.
Yeah, you become kind of like very heavily influenced, if not completely, let's say, one of the same, right? Or,
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. Because also, I mean, the fight for freedom, I mean, that's when the next section, I think, comes about with the April Uprising, when Bulgarians started actually fighting for their independence and saying, look, actually, like, we have a Bulgarian language, which we haven't spoken for many years. A lot of our schools have been, like, basically closed because, like, Ottoman schools were implemented in the country. Like, the whole educational policy structure was significantly changed. In terms of religion also, like, because Ottomans were Muslims, so also there was this also like religious clash which happened between Christians and Muslims. So then there was a lot of elements playing a role in our decision to uprise against the Ottomans.
Yeah, so it was of course multi-factor. It was not only like this writer that pushed, so it was kind of cultural influence. Also, I guess the fact that it had been too long already, a lot of circumstances such as schools and so on, that you kind of wanted to go back to what you were.
One thing we discussed though is also that Bulgaria managed to keep its Christian identity despite being under Ottoman influence for so long, right? That's also, to me, quite an interesting feature of the, and how did they manage to do so, at least from what you know?
Mm-hmm. So actually, like I think we can discuss this a bit later, because first we can pass through like the Russo-Turkish War, which happened. That was like in 1878.
Yep.
So basically, like the Russians fighting against the Turkish
For independence. This was
for Bulgarians' independence from the Ottomans.
Yeah.
So it was a matter of who wins, the Russians or the Turkish. And then there were actually a lot of people killed in those battles. But then, yes, there was in the end actually like the Russians won this war.
Mm-hmm.
That's why later on, as we will discuss, we came under a communist regime.
yeah.
Sort of to repay this early support that you received from Russia, basically, or in a way.
I mean, that's a way to describe it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, now like some people will agree or not, depending. But overall, yes, this is the narrative that is taught in schools.
And then, what was the concrete outcome for Bulgaria of the Russo-Turkish War? What was the impact?
So it was building a nation. So basically, like Bulgaria went through 3 empires.
Mm-hmm.
So there was the first, the second, and the third. The first empire was actually the first Bulgarian empire collapsed because Byzantines basically took over. So we were actually under Byzantine Empire, so under the Greeks.
The first empire was like back in the 600 something.
Yeah, way back in
That was the first one. Okay.
Yes. And then we had the second empire, which after the collapse of the Byzantine Empire, we became like like a separate like Bulgarian Empire, the second one. And then that was then actually it collapsed because of the Ottomans. So then like the Ottoman Empire. So then the second Bulgarian Empire collapsed. And then 500 years later, we developed the third Bulgarian Empire, which spoiler alert, it also collapsed.
Well, okay, of course.
Because of the Soviet Union, of the communist regime that was also established in
But
Bulgaria.
it was born after the Russian-Turkish War, so it was born in 1878.
Yes.
Okay.
So that war, actually, this is a question that comes to mind now, was Russia who won it, so against the Turkish, and therefore defeated the Ottoman Empire, but they let your independence.
Yeah, that's true actually, yeah.
They didn't take over.
They didn't take over, I mean, because that was also like in due time for the First World War. So it was a bit in that timing, but actually the First Balkan War was successes against the Ottoman Empire. So that was like the war that was fought against it. The Second Balkan War was conflict with the former allies, and then territorial losses and growing national frustration. So this was between 1912 and 1913, so just before the First World War.
Okay.
Then Bulgaria, during World War I, actually joined Central Powers, the Central Powers, so being Germany, Austro-Hungarian Empire, and Ottoman Empire.
Yeah.
And actually, they joined, there was a post-war instability and loss of prestige, so actually they joined those forces because they were promised some of the land that they had lost, actually, from the Balkan Wars.
Yeah.
So you know how Bulgaria was also fighting with other Balkan countries at those times. So then they had those wars. So then by us joining the Central Powers during First World War, we were promised that you will regain some of the lost territory that you had lost.
Which was very similar to Italy, by the way. Recall.
But Bulgaria didn't change.
Bulgaria didn't change. Only Italy.
Only Italy changed sides.
But that's a different story, literally.
Literally. Quite different.
Okay, so end of World War One, joining the wrong side or joining the losing side. So I guess they didn't regain what they were hoping. And what happened after? Then what did it lead to?
So then, I mean, there was the, the global depression and everything, but then coming up to Second World War, actually, Bulgaria actually, first of all, we actually changed sides in the Second World War. So initially we went with the Germans.
Like us.
So many similarities between us.
Finding the common grounds across Europe.
Yes, and actually it's interesting because during Second World War, because we joined forces with the Germans, we actually when Germans asked for the Jews, to be deported, Bulgaria actually said, we're not going to give you the Jews. I mean, we'll keep the Jews to ourselves, meaning that we'll continue having them in the country and, as full citizens, not giving them to you. But we'll join forces with you on strategic alignment.
Okay.
Yeah. So actually we saved many thousands of Jews because of this reason, because we joined forces with Germany, and then therefore we said, actually, we're not going to give you the Jews because we're already strategically, aligning with you. Yeah. So in return, you're not going to take the Bulgarian Jews. Yeah. So a lot of Bulgarian Jews were actually saved during the war.
Very interesting. And Germany, Germany didn't have any issues with that, didn't oppose to that.
Germany, no, it didn't. I mean, I think at some point it didn't have a say in that situation because we were allies, right? So then Germany could not go against us fully.
I had no idea, or I didn't remember at all that you were allies.
I think
looking at you like tell me you're as an ignorant as I am.
No. I mean, maybe in the back of my mind it rings a bell, but I don't know. You don't usually mention it. I think in history that Bulgaria was allied with Germany. Yeah. Oh yeah, interesting. But then, so you mentioned which sides, meaning that at some point you had a change of strategy, or what happened there?
Yes. So actually there was a point when Germany pressured Bulgaria to join the Axis before launching the invasion of Yugoslavia and Greece. So actually what Germany wanted to do was we allowed German troops to pass through the Bulgarian territory and attack Greece and Yugoslavia. Yeah. And then we did that. Then therefore we annexed territories in Macedonia and parts of northern Greece under the German occupation. We did not send troops to the Eastern Front. So, yeah, and then having said that, we also refused to deport Bulgarian Jews to Nazi concentration camps, thanks to the pressure from the Orthodox Church, politicians, as well as the civil society. Yeah. Okay. Then the turning point was the Red Army approach in 1944. Bulgaria switched sides. So actually, when the Red Army from Russia approached, we kind of couped in September 1944, brought a pro-Soviet government to power. So then I think Bulgaria realized that, Germany is losing the war, the Red Army is there. So I think we also strategically aligned that, we'll switch sides because otherwise it can become a very bloody massacre. So yeah.
So you left, then the Red Army entered the country or something like that, or in any case you decided to align with the Soviet Union at that point?
Yes, exactly. And even though Bulgaria was never under the USSR, so we were never part of, officially part of the USSR, we were a separate entity, yet our communist leader, Todor Zhivkov, he was the one leading the country, and he was very well aligned with Russia's priorities, very well aligned with Stalin's communist policies. So then, in a way, we were a separate entity, yet we were, very influenced and motivated to...
oriented towards the same goal and values in a way.
Exactly.
Despite having certain degree of autonomy and independence.
Exactly.
Okay. So
So in a way, Bulgaria avoided occupation by the Western Allies, but fell firmly the Soviet sphere of influence. So then we fell for from 1944 until 1989. We were under the Soviet Empire, the Soviet Union.
Okay. And I mean, which shape did that take in Bulgaria? So it was a communist regime. You had a dictatorship, I assume, or in any case, a one-party system. How was the experience for Bulgaria?
It was one-party system.
Mm-hmm.
It was one-party system. So then, you had the communists. There was one party. Also, for the majority of the time, there was one guy leading it, Todor Zhivkov. And we then strategically aligned with a lot of the Eastern European countries, the Eastern Bloc countries, with Russia. So then our relationship with Russians also strengthened during that time because also for example, my parents, they grew up in communist Bulgaria, and they were actually studying Russian in school.
Sure.
Every person would study Russian in school alongside Bulgarian, but also Russian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then they would speak both languages.
And what about Turkish? Because it had happened. I mean, it was already long, some years after the, let's say, fall of the uprising and the April. How do you say
April uprising?
Exactly, April uprising, and defeating or going against the Ottoman Empire and so on. But what was Turkish influence? Because as you mentioned before, you had a lot of schools. You were not really having that Bulgarian national sentiment. You had built it.
Mm-hmm.
But then how it happened afterwards, you closed all those schools, or you still kept some of the Turkish influence anyhow, or how did it work?
Mm-hmm. So the Turkish influence was there because 500 years of that, but I think then Bulgaria started developing some stronger policies, decreasing the amount of Turkish wear, or changing, also starting to open schools that were Bulgarian language schools rather than Turkish. Since the fall of the Ottoman Empire was also because the Ottoman Empire was Muslim, then with the development of the Bulgarian Orthodox Church, I think there was also a bit of a religious clash, where Bulgaria wanted to go back to being Orthodox. So then actually during that process there were many disadvantages in terms of that they would for example tell Turkish people to change their names to Bulgarian. So then they would either have to change their name, start speaking the Bulgarian language, or leave the country, because Bulgaria kind of developed that as a national policy to to kind of decrease the Turkish influence and grow the Bulgarian identity. There was a lot of that, and also like I mentioned before, there was this exchange of Muslims and Christians between northern Greece and modern day Istanbul, and also Bulgaria was part of that as well. So then what Venizelos did was he sent a lot of the Greek Muslims to Turkey. Then he told Ataturk, give us the the Turkish Christians that are from that region. Then there was this whole exchange, and then Bulgaria also had some was influenced by that exchange, right? So then actually I was telling you earlier that we still to this day have villages in Bulgaria that are Turkish minority. So we have a big Turkish minority in Bulgaria. And we also have news, so we actually that's a fun fact, but when we have the national news on TV every single day, there's also a channel for Turkish people to watch in Turkish.
Interesting.
When
we say minority, I don't know, just for context, do you have any numbers? Is it a very small minority or a sizable minority, let's say?
I would say around like 7 to 8% of the population.
Okay, so not
not-
that small. Yeah.
Not that small.
Yeah, quite big. And
Interesting.
yeah, there's some villages to this day that are like we call them pomaci, like so it's like Turkish, basically Bulgarians that are of Turkish or Muslim background.
This is also super out of curiosity. It includes as well the Turkish that had to change their names, or not really? Those are considered.
Oh, that's a very good question.
How do you
actually.
count those?
Yes, how
Where-
do you count those? I think it's a mix. Yes, I think some of them are counted, some of them not. Yeah, but I think some of them are counted because they can be tracked. But honestly, like some of them cannot be tracked because you know you have to go many generations
Yeah,
back.
yeah, yeah.
When
of
you
course.
mix with your family. and
Yeah,
so on.
yeah, yeah.
But interesting.
Very nice question.
Yeah.
Yeah, very nice question.
Let's check it out afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, super nice. So then, going
Yes.
back to after World War One. Yeah, we are. Sorry, World War Two. Thank you. We are already communism. I was okay. We were in communism.
Yeah.
That lasted until 1989. You said.
Actually, it really depends on because a lot of country in the Balkans was under the under the communist regime.
Mhm.
But Bulgaria's communist regime fell the same year as the Berlin Wall, so 1989.
Mm.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
I was about to say it, but I was super afraid of being
No,
wrong.
no, you're wrong.
Because my memory is not the best.
But it turns out to be good.
Yes, yes. Thanks to having been in Berlin.
And I presume, but yeah, maybe you can tell us about it. Like the fall was due to, I guess, well, economically probably not performing great, but also maybe population discontent. I don't know. How was the experience of communism in Bulgaria, and what led to the end of it, together with the global context, I guess.
Yes, I mean there was like a very cultural shift. People started leaning because you know when from like 1987, 1986, you know, like my grandparents would tell me that like at some point we could feel that the Soviet, like the communist regime started to fall apart, you know, but because it was such a like a national secret and like you were not allowed to talk about it so much, like, you know, so openly. So then everyone had to kind of remain quiet and see this like unfiltered in front of their eyes while being in the system, which I found very interesting.
Yeah.
But for
Super different to nowadays when you would talk about everything and it's very weird to think about it.
Yes, and a lot of people who were actually part of the Communist Party, like some of them truly believed in that, but others actually felt forced to do it in a way, you know, because you felt like you could have better opportunities and so on and so forth. My grandfather actually he was a professor at university, so actually like even during the communist regime, he was actually sent to Italy to like teach in university in Italy.
Okay.
Which was not a usual case because normally like Bulgarians or like people that were under the communist empire, like the Soviet Union, we couldn't go to countries
Without a communist system.
Exactly.
You would discover, propaganda.
Exactly.
No, but really? Yeah. Because I didn't, I've heard this before in a way. I mean, it happens nowadays with some Asian countries.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting experience.
And then actually my father would tell me that, for example, they would, of course, when they would go to cinema, they would have cinemas and they could they could go to, you know, like culturally like watch movies from other countries. But the way they would filter the movie, so they would really like only pick and choose very specific movies that they were allowed to watch. And actually one of them, funny enough, is The Godfather. So for example, like, you know, because they wanted to see, like they wanted Bulgarians to see how like, yes, you see like the Western world is full of like mafia, killing, you know, so like kind of like it served as a like propaganda, you know?
Basically Italians being the propaganda against the Western world.
Yeah, but that's crazy how much you can influence.
Yes, and then actually, like my parents would tell me this because I was not born then, but my parents would tell me that some parts of the movies they would cut. So then years later, when my parents would watch the same movie, they would realize that they would have cut a specific section of the movie. Scene.
Yeah.
Imagine not getting the plot at the end. You're like, did you get the plot of this movie? Like, oh yeah. Actually, got like 10 minutes of it.
Literally, yeah, exactly. So then you have a completely different interpretation of.
Crazy. Yeah, but that's what dictatorships do, no?
Yeah, that's crazy actually.
Yeah, and actually, like you could buy some. There was a shop called Koracom. So like for the people that remember Koracom, shout out to that.
So our Bulgarian listeners.
Where you could buy Western things. So for example, like my parents would be like, yeah, I used to go there and like they used to have super cool jeans, like from like the US, like super cool jeans imported, So everyone is trying to, buy whatever they can. But the plot twist of that was that you could only buy it with American dollars.
Oh.
And then if you had American dollars, or if you had more American dollars than usual, then sometimes police would come to you and ask you, sorry, but where do you have these American dollars from?
Wait a second.
Something doesn't align here.
Wow.
Yeah.
So actually, maybe Koracom was a way to actually to find people, a way to trick them into.
But they would come to the store.
They wouldn't come. I mean, they would be in front. I mean, it was there was security in front, also on the streets. Like my dad was super much into vinyls and basically vinyls and listening to more Western music. Then they would actually really spot you. Like if they see you like carrying something that was a bit odd or weird, they would stop you and ask you like, where did you get this from? Do you have a license for this? So then you had to
Crazy.
justify.
Super
And
controlled.
then how was that period, like the transition towards democracy and once the communist
regime fell.
fell?
And capitalism and so on.
Yeah, I mean, it was actually Bulgaria was struggling like in the first years, like many ex-Soviet countries that were, like the fall of communism and return to multi-party politics. There was like economic collapse, hyperinflation, and privatization.
Yeah.
So then, struggles of the new democratic institutions. Like people, for example, people would tell me that they would go to the store and there was almost nothing to buy in the store because everything there's no resources. Everything is pretty much it was very hard economically in the first few years.
Yeah, and there was any specific personality that you would highlight during that period maybe that helped and supported the country in building this system?
Actually, not that I recall, but a lot of with the fall of the communism, like a lot of people from other countries would come, So then I think this will kind of start, enhancing the diplomatic relations with other countries. Then the bridge between the East and the West was, there was basically a bridge built between the East and the West. So then people would be more, diplomatic development of foreign relations. Yeah.
And I guess that would be also reassuring in a way, despite the struggle of the transition phase between communism and democracy and rebuilding the whole system. I guess also having that connection, that bridge that didn't exist, was in a way reassuring and helping Bulgaria rebuild.
Exactly, helping Bulgaria rebuild. And then actually from 1989 to 1999, it was a tough decade, of trying to kind of reinvent yourself after everything.
After so many years of one regime, one party, you need to build a whole new system.
Exactly, and people were stressed as well. Like people were like, so what does the future hold? We're only used to this communist party, and now that it's fallen, what do we expect? So then we had a lot of people, like leaving Bulgaria. So that actually during that period of time, there was a lot of brain drain, which is still like a big thing in Bulgaria today, because a lot of Bulgarians, including myself, I never lived in Bulgaria actually. I was always raised in other countries, but not Bulgaria. So then a lot of people left the country. So then there was this brain drain as well.
Yeah, but I guess probably also like thinking chronologically, two key things that helped to foster in Bulgaria was the accession to the EU and NATO from a geopolitical point of view. So maybe if you want to tell us how that went.
Yes, so NATO we joined 2004, and then EU we joined the European Union in 2007. So I think that was a significant good change for Bulgaria. We joined Schengen on 1st of January 2025 actually. So
Welcome!
Welcome!
Thank you. We were waiting for it for
Which is why you can get iron now.
Cheers!
Maybe cheers. How I'm ready with the beer.
Definitely more easily, but
Yeah. But that's crazy, because I would assume that, and I thought that actually was kind of first. I know there's no specific order required, but I thought it was Schengen and then EU in general. Or many times there are more countries that are in Schengen that are in EU.
no, but also Croatia joined Schengen recently, no? But it was already in the EU. Anyway. Forgive us for this. We will investigate.
Being in the Schengen country, where Schengen was established in Luxembourg, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
So which is pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Schengen.
Well, yeah.
Okay, so Schengen area beginning of this year. The NATO, I was gonna say it in Spanish, OTAN. The NATO, it was in 2004, and the EU in 2007. Yeah, that it was with the let's say. Not the whole Balkans, but like many
countries
with Romania.
Yeah. With
Romania, our northern neighbor.
Okay.
And maybe around this time and after, something I want to highlight of this period for Bulgaria, like more, let's say, recent times or modern times.
Yes, I think the young people of Bulgaria, actually there are a lot of young people who, because actually Bulgaria is, in modern day politics, it is very complicated, unfortunately, and there are very contradicting parties in our current political sphere. But I'm happy to say that there is a very strong European party in Bulgaria, and actually a lot of my young Bulgarian friends, they actually support, and I can see the difference that they want to bring to Bulgaria, and also preparing Bulgaria for its ascension to the Eurozone. So we don't have euro right now. We have Bulgarian levas, but potentially also we would in the best case scenario also join the Eurozone, so we'll fully integrate ourselves into the European sphere and the European market, which I think will be super useful for Bulgaria.
Yeah.
In my personal opinion, because we have seen a lot of benefits from the European Union, but also I think for European empowerment we need to act united, and considering the geopolitical wars right now and scenario right now, I think it's very useful for more countries to join the EU, and so EU can be strengthened, and then we act united from there.
Sure.
100%. And random question that I haven't asked in general, but I don't know why. Which of all that we've discussed, a bit as a closure, but which of all that we've discussed you believe in a way kind of shape the average? Of course there's not average, but yeah, you have some average Spanish and average Italian. So what do you think in a way has shaped a bit the average Bulgarian, and how would you more or less describe it, or from an outsider perspective?
Very, very good question. From an outsider perspective, actually there are a few things that come to my mind. We have actually some national Bulgarian writers that are very important, I think, for the average Bulgarian to I mean, because every average Bulgarian knows about them, and also like has learned about that in school. For example, Hristo Botev is one of them. Yes. Yes, so then we have Elin Pelin, which is another one. So it's Bulgarian writers, and we have actually great poetry as well that a lot of writers have that we also learn in school. And I think one is also like a modern writer that actually has become worldwide known. His name is Georgi Gospodinov. So he's actually his books they're like really like now they're at its peak, because also a lot of non-Bulgarians also know about him. I actually saw some of his books in the Luxembourgish bookshop, which I was very happy to see. But he writes very philosophical topics, a bit like existential questions, you know. So I think one thing that it's good to know about Bulgaria is that throughout the centuries, despite all these changes and, you know, like every other country as well, historical influences and this constant chaos and economic failures and all that, I think we have remained strong in, being able for national writers to present their ideas and open-mindedness through their books. So I think this is one thing that I think strikes us as a culture, is that we deeply value those assets actually that we have, and I think the average Bulgarian should also value them, you know. So I think to answer your question, it's a complicated one. I think maybe this will be something maybe some of those authors, or standing for this constant flow of ideas, you know.
Okay.
Very nice.
Super. Very nice closure. I think I have not much. Well, you had any other question?
No, I just want to say that I look forward to drink Iran maybe on the Bulgarian Sea or something like that. So
yes.
Never been to Bulgaria. It's one of the few countries in Europe that I haven't visited. So
add it to the bucket list.
Definitely one more reason to visit.
Yes, definitely. And I'm happy to show you more of the Bulgarian food, you know, because also as Bulgarians, we are very engraved in our food, in our culture. Like for us, hospitality is a big thing, you know. So even my grandma, she would wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning, you know, to cook you breakfast. Or when she would have guests, she would be she wants everything to be perfect and cook a lot. Yeah. So for us, we show our love through food. So for the food that we cook,
Well, Malda and I definitely appreciated the Ivar that we ate. So maybe you want to explain what it is, because now we know, but.
Yes, actually, I was unfortunately looking for lutenica, which my fellow Bulgarians will, tell me, why did you bring Ivar? Because Ivar is technically not Bulgarian.
Betrayal.
It's the most similar we could find in Luxembourg. We have our limitations.
So basically, lutenica is like a Bulgarian. I call it a national dish because at this point it's a national dish. It's like a Bulgarian. Dish that usually you eat with bread and cheese. So normally you mix tomatoes and peppers in there, and then also some spices. And then the Ivar actually does not have tomatoes, so it only has peppers. So then Ivar is the closest you could get to a lutenica, but Ivar comes from other Balkan countries. Yeah, so yeah.
Next time lutenica.
Next time lutenica.
Very recommended. So thank you, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Karina, for all the content.
Thank you both. Thank you.
And see you on the next episode for another neighbor, getting to know more neighbors, almost covering the EU 27.
All right. Thank you all.
Episode 10, next one, huh? Ooh, bye. Thank
Ciao.
you.
Nice. Thank you. Bye.